And we're live. How's everybody doing? So last week they told me that it was a little hard to hear. So we've got this cranked up. I've actually got a cloud lifter preamp coming from Rick. Rick immediately jumped in and wanted to contribute. He's enjoying my discomfiture at doing live streams. It's kind of like playing a gig. You're going live, except I'm the only person in the room. I'm looking around for the bass player. I'm all by myself. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Make sure everybody tell me you can hear me. Yes? Is it good? I assume Phil would let me know. Phil always lets me know when he can't hear me or see me. Sounds good. Good. Excellent. Thanks. Great. Thanks everybody for coming. And we got folks from all over. It's very cool. I've been shooting my mouth about studying Dutch, so I hope the guys on the forum are kind here. There's links to the store and the tip jar in the description. If you want to be sure that I see your question as we go by here, especially when we get into the YouTube stuff. Hey, Robert Baker going by there. Make sure that you throw something in the top chat. I'll definitely see it. I'll definitely read it out for you. We got Phil moderating as usual. He's really kind of the police. You guys are generally pretty well behaved, although Phil tells me he bumped somebody last time. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about topics from my upcoming YouTube course that I've been working on. I spent the whole morning working on it today. It's like 25 pages of single space stuff at this point, and I'll be building little videos about that. I'm not sure what platform I'll have that on in the long run, but that's what we're doing. So that's what I'm working on. If that's cool with everybody, let me know. Like I said, if I had a friend, actually a boss, he was also a friend, a long time ago that said that the only stupid question was the unasked question. So that applies when it comes to this kind of stuff too. I won't know the answers to everything. There's YouTubers on here like Robert and Jens who've been on the platform way longer than I have. It's very kind of them to be here. And I was teasing Jan Jankut earlier that if you guys have theory questions, he's an amazing transcriber. I've been trying to read through his transcriptions of amazing Bill Frisell stuff. So check him out. I'll do my best. I'm basically just trying to share my experience with what I've learned. And I'm lucky in that I have had friends that were starting in YouTube at the same time. And having a community of YouTubers has been immeasurably helpful. Rick Beato is one of my oldest friends. He started on the platform the year before I got here. And by the time I was kind of getting started, he had already had a couple of 100,000 subscribers when I had, 1,200 or something. So I'm not kidding anybody. That, of course, makes a huge difference to get your head above the horizon, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But also Zach Childs and Jeff McErlane, who have much smaller channels, but they have really interesting life experience, and they're great. Jeff's an amazing teacher. Thanks, Perry. Thanks for the top chat. I'm not sure what that question is, but I'm sure we'll come back to it, and I can count on you to help me. Zach Childs, Jeff McErlane, Rhett, Shull. Those guys introduced me to Tim Pierce. I recently got to talk to Fluff. I'm going to connect with Robert one of these days. We're going to talk YouTube. I'm very excited. I think that having a community, even building a community of other YouTubers that you can rely on, makes a huge difference. And getting out on the platform, actually doing this, getting out and being on live streams. Sort of, if you're going to sell the product, you got to buy the product. You need to be part of the community to do it. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So without naming names, I have this story that Rick told me a couple weeks ago. Somebody called him, a really well-known YouTuber, and said, I have this friend who's a musician and he's thinking about starting YouTube. Would you mind talking to him? Rick's like, yeah, absolutely. Rick's very generous with his time, actually. And so they said, so the guy called and he said, well, I have two questions for you. Okay. Well, first question is, can you tell stories? Because really this whole platform is driven by stories. And the guy's like, yeah, I'm not really very good at stories. I grew up overseas and I have a bad accent. Sometimes people find that off-putting, so I don't think I'm very good at stories. And then, and he goes, well, okay, well, can you commit to posting regularly? And the guy's like, yeah, between session work and touring and stuff, I'm not sure I can commit to posting regularly. And Rick said to the guy, oh, okay, let me save you a lot of time. Don't bother. Don't think that you're going to be able to do the platform, come and go when you're off the road, those kinds of things. It definitely is a thing where you need to settle into a pattern. How often is a really debatable thing, and I've got a lot of examples besides myself who do really well at posting irregularly and have still built very large channels or very successful channels because they're good at telling stories and they spend time building that story in the video. And this platform is all about that. So you have to work at telling stories well. And that includes, it's interesting, I was just talking to Jeff about this the other day. That includes doing titling and thumbnails, which can be the bane of your existence. I was very lucky in that I lit on a series that I could use the same style of thumbnail. And there's lots of good things that come out of there, but not the least of which is it doesn't take me, it doesn't take me hours to build a thumbnail for the short histories. It takes longer to do the non-ones, or like even these. The thumbnail for this took me a little while the other day. Hey, RJ, thanks for coming, man. Who else is snowed in today? Yeah, lots of people. I know TCM is snowed in. They're working on snowing us in here, RJ. So RJ was very kind. I imagine everybody saw the Dan Electro video. I told RJ that after RJ played that blue 59 DM of his, that I noticed before the video went live that they had 5 of them or 6 of them left in stock at Sweetwater, and within a couple hours they were all gone. So I think we can all blame or thank, the boys at Sweetwater can thank RJ for that. It's a killer color. They're really great. So you need to release on a regular schedule. You need to tell stories well. You need to release on a regular schedule. You need to commit to doing, I don't believe in the twice a week thing, the 3 times a week thing. It just has to be regular. People have to know that something's coming. I actually have this theory that if you release too frequently, you can end up what I call walking on your own videos, walking on your own views. You put a video out and it's starting to gain momentum and people are starting to see it. And then you actually put another video out, and if people haven't looked every day or they didn't get notified, then they see your new video. They never even saw the last video. So I think you want to let things run. But of course, I'm a guy who's trying to do this every couple of weeks. Yeah, John wants me to move my right shoulder. We'll get to that guitar if we have to. That's a new guitar, and I have a big, I should really be doing an ad for the big sale because I'm going to clean out the basement to pay for that over my shoulder, John. The third thing I'd say is that's really important is kind of this, building a community, or, reading all the comments. I still read all the comments, and I usually heart them, the ones that I agree with or that I enjoy. So that's a big deal, that you actually engage, that you enjoy people. You enjoy the platform, you enjoy the community that you're creating. That's a big part of it. And I think, Rick reads all his comments still, which just kills me. And he doesn't heart them all. He doesn't take time to do that because he's got so many thousands every day. But the reality is, if you're not engaged in it, if you're not enjoying that part of it, then that's a thing, which actually kind of leads me to the next one. You need to like all the parts of doing YouTube to do it well, and I think especially to do it for a while. I was interested when Fluff interviewed me for his channel, and he was very kind to do that because he didn't get a ton of views, of course, but the reality is he was admitting to me how much of a camera and lighting geek he is and how much he loves editing and how much time, I think we did this mostly off camera, but he's talking about how much that's part of telling the story, how the pacing and the quality of the audio and all of those things, that if you're not enjoying, building the ideas and collecting ideas and scripting things, even if they end up in the trash, that's a thing. You need to be able to build idea lists and then let them go if you think they don't pan out when you're trying to, outline the thing out. You have to enjoy the camera stuff. You have to enjoy filming. You don't have to enjoy it all the same, but you have to enjoy all the parts of it. I was completely struck by how beautifully RJ shot his stuff the other day. And I was even asking him what kind of software he uses and some other things like that. And turning to each other is back to what I mentioned before. Having a community that you can rely on is an incredible, incredible thing. Then there's the lighting, there's the software. You need to be pretty good at software. Even the OBS stuff, though I immediately, flashed a picture of myself when I should have been showing the timer today. That's all part of it. You need to be learning stuff all the time. And so I guess probably ultimately you need to enjoy that part of it. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about before I kind of just do a quick overview is that you need to pick a topic. You need to do work that keeps you excited. I it's not uncommon at all to start your channel and kind of look around, do lots of different kinds of things, and see what people pick up on. There's a guy, Ali Abdal. I think I mentioned him last time even, because this is a guy, he's a really young guy. He's just out of medical school. He worked as a doctor for a couple of years, and he talks about how he has found success doing productivity videos. And the reality is that's not what he set out to do. The reality is that he thought he would have a channel about very different things. And so now, of course, what you see on his channel is he has productivity snuck into everything, every title. He's like, he did a video the other day, which I didn't watch yet. Sorry, Ali, if you're watching this, about his incredibly productive Valentine's Day, which cracked me up. So you never really know what's going to pick up. And then you have to, when that does happen, then you got to ask yourself how much you're going to enjoy doing that over time. I used to be an academic advisor early in my career at a college, and it was at a good college. And so students would be, to get into this college, you probably were pretty good at everything in high school. And at the same time, you can't, just because you're good at something doesn't mean that that's the thing you're going to do. It doesn't mean it's the thing that lights you up and gets you excited. And in this game especially, if you're going to do this for any length of time, you better like all the parts, and you better like the kinds of things you're working on. That's absolutely the truth. I think people have a sense of it, and I'm not seeing questions about this yet in here yet. Maybe everybody's trying to get back with John to talk about the guitar over my shoulder, but because it's sort of we're the non-gear gear channel. But I started on YouTube actually set the channel up on Christmas Eve, December 2017. I made my first video in March. I did what I tell people not to do. I tell people to not buy nice cameras and lighting and fixate on gear. It's a big theme of the channel that's the last thing you should do is fixate about gear. I always tell stories about my buddy Zach Childs, who has a very successful channel at about 17,000 subscribers already. And he got monetized within a couple of months. He's made 80 videos on his iPhone and uses his wife's iPhone for the audio. And his videos are killer. You should all go watch Zach Child's channel, if not for any other reason than to look at what amazing quality he can get with very minimal equipment. Except for, I was teasing him earlier today that included in the equipment is the stuff between his ears. Because, of course, he wrote for Vintage Guitar Magazine for 15 years. And he can just do a straight 13-minute, shot without any trouble at all. So I started then. I got monetized in April. My buddy Rick had me down. I went to, I've been to Atlanta twice before the lockdown and made videos with Rick. We're really old friends. And like I said, we talk most every day about YouTube and different things about YouTube. In my previous career, I was a real analytics guy, big computer data guy. And so the analytics are fascinating to me, even though ultimately I would tell you that all you really need to know about the algorithm is if you do well, YouTube will get right behind you because they're all about taking care of themselves. So I got monetized in April of the next year, 2019. And, I could talk to you about like when I got my first 10,000 subscribers, but really, that doesn't matter as much as like getting your first million views, which is kind of a surreal number. I was laughing because during lockdown, my sister cut my hair a couple of times. She's a practical nurse and a nurse practitioner. She cut my hair. She's great. It's great for her to do that. And the reality is that my mom's like, hey, well, it's not like anybody's going to see you. I'm like, well, actually, the channel gets about 450,000 views a month. And so getting that first million views, because you get paid for views, you don't get paid for how many subs. And the number of subs doesn't necessarily immediately equate to how many views you're going to get. That's really changed a lot in the way that YouTube handles subscriptions and notifications and stuff. So anyway, that's kind of the overview. I just broke 9.5 million subs completely arbitrarily. I'm excited that probably in about another month and a half, I'll be hitting my 10 million views mark. And as I said, it's a very surreal number. And I'll tell you anything I know about it. And there's lots of guys on here that know more about YouTube overall than I do. I think that the reason I am so emboldened to go out and try to do a course is that I spent a lot of time in higher ed, not as a faculty member, not teaching, maybe because I didn't teach, I'm ready to do that, or I'm comfortable doing that. I spent a lot of years doing consulting. I think that after you're in the business, any business for a while, you should try to give back. Although I have a really good friend who calls all consulting insulting, because usually you're getting hired by somebody to come in and evaluate someone that works for them. And inevitably it gets touchy. So that's the overall sense of where we're going. As like I said, I'm going to be working on the course probably for the rest of this week. So let me scroll back here. I see Keith Madding, my buddy Keith, had a question here. What about research? Picking topics and the dive into writing the story. What's the path? I could outline it the way I do that. I have a document in my phone that everybody hears me joke about the list. I have this huge list of topics in my phone. And the reality is that it's almost endless. I could do short histories for the next 3 years and I wouldn't exhaust the stuff on this list. And it's everything from, do one on Sadowski guitars to do one on wah-wah pedals. I mean, one would be huge, one might be small, but you never know where the really great story is. So that's a thing. So what I do for research is I print out every article or interview I can ever find. The first one I did like that was the David Grissom guitar, and I literally read about 50 pages of interviews that David had done. I didn't know Jeff McElwain at the time. I didn't have access to David Grissom. I did it all from secondary documents, which actually is an easier way to do it. And frankly, for the level that I can get into in 20 to 30 minutes, that's probably about right. Although it's very cool when I can do direct interviews, of course. And then I write for a week, I edit, and then then I'll send it to, actually I edit it myself on screen a couple of times, and then I do it out loud like this. I read it. It's up on the screen. I'm reading it aloud, and the rhythm of reading is very different than the rhythm that you're reading it in your head. And then I send it to Perry if I have time out, and Perry is an amazing technical writer and really is good at pointing out things and frankly adding lots of really good details because he's as big a guitar geek as anybody here. So then the next, I try to take weekends off, although I'm rarely completely successful. The next Monday I shoot, and then I edit half of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, try to shoot for release on Thursday mornings. That's the pattern for a video. This time of year, one of the things that we can talk about is that at different times of year, it's very different pay scales. So there's times of the year when you're not going to make as much money per view as you will, say, running up to Christmas. It's almost double running up to Christmas as what we'd see on right now. So this is a good time to do building. It's a good time to generate ideas and put new things up there. So I think that that's a key thing. So Keith, if that doesn't answer all of what you wanted on that, just go ahead and email me. You guys can always email me on the About channel. Actually, Phil is asking if you should go ahead and put the questions. If I missed one, Phil, go ahead and throw it up there. How about the Snorlax plushie, though? Well, we talked about that last time, Diluted Spine. So my son's 15, but he was 10 when I got that. And I think he got, I'm not big into Pokemon. I think he kind of looks like a Buddha. I think I did this last week. So we're going to get back out. So Ben still's got some around. It's funny when we sit around the computer, we don't have like a big TV setup. We sit around the computer and we watch my iMac here and we watch movies. Ben will pick him up and kind of mash his head down and stuff. And I'm like, hey, he's like the Buddha plushie. Can't do that. All right, so now I gave you all a peek of the guitar. Should I just get that out of the way so John can focus again? I've been, should I get it? Hold on. It's funny, I was saying that this looks better on camera than it does in person. It's got a kind of a funny color. I'm going to make a video, obviously, about Les Pauls. I've had all these Les Paul substitutes for a long time. I haven't owned a Les Paul for a long time. Both Jeff and Perry and my wife all were kind of like, well, if you're going to talk about Les Pauls and compare things to Les Pauls, then you ought to just have a Les Paul again. And so I have this thing about light guitars. And so I I found one. This weighs 7 pounds, 14 ounces. So yeah, I'd say Michael Easter's asking if it's a honeyburst. I'd say that it's really sort of Jeff calls his a dirty lemon burst, and I'd say that's probably what this is. Zach Broyles over at Mythos told me that I'm actually going to see this back because the original ones, the red dye fades to brown, and this top will. Does everybody know this? So I'm actually going to make a video about bursts. It's just about bursts. But the original, all the bursts were originally cherry bursts. And the colors that developed over the years that have now become sort of standardized Gibson colors had to do with how much sunlight, smoke, sweat, all the things that kind of go into that. So anyway, so that's it. I just changed the strings for the first time. I'm a pickguard guy, so everybody who's not a pickguard on a Les Paul guy, just go ahead and start screaming right now, because that's going to get a pickguard. But I'm a little gun shy about putting a pickguard on a Les Paul that's worth that much. It's an R9, and it's actually from last year. Perry knows a lot more about this, and yeah, I can blame him to a great extent. But it's the 2020 guitars are as good as the ones they've built in any recent years. So let me get some of the questions that Perry's got here. Somebody says, help, I'm scared to post videos of myself playing. Any tips to break out of this cage? Yeah, my tips for that is to get Jeff McErlane to do most of your playing for you. No, don't do that. It makes it much worse. One of my goals when I launched the channel was to force myself to do more writing and playing. And every once in a while, I think last week I had some music at the front of a video, or 2 weeks ago, one of the book videos or something, and I put a piece of my playing, and somebody asked me, is that you? Like, what is that? And it actually was something that I wrote. And I would say that probably during lockdown, I've spent more time working on the channel, kind of probably as a stress reliever than I used to. And I'm going to try to get more balance again around that. So posting clips of playing yourself, there's this great thing that they talk about in psychology called the spotlight. And it's the idea that we all kind of feel like we're in a spotlight. I'm quite literally in a spotlight here, but that we have this sense that there's this spotlight, coming down on us. And I saw in a video, somebody did a graphic of this, and they're like, well, you need to come to grips with the fact that you think everybody's looking at your spotlight, but they're all looking at their spotlight. You don't need to be afraid about posting your video because at first, A, people won't see your videos very much, and B, you're only the player that you are. I'm never going to be able to play like Jeff and RJ, and I wish actually. There's a whole bunch of cool chromaticism RJ's playing that always gets my attention. Or Robert, these guys Robert's got this shred stuff that it was never my thing. I'm trying to break out of sort of just trying to do as many 16th notes as I can do over a 2-5-1 jazz progression. So those are all the things that I'm working on. So I think everybody is scared of putting their playing up. Jeff the other day did a live stream, and he had been taking his mom to get a shot, to get her COVID shot, and he didn't have a chance to warm up. And it's live. He's soloing live. He killed it because he's Jeff, but he made some mistakes. And his joke is when he does that stuff is it's live. The beauty of doing a video is you get to edit, so you can always clean it up. And it's kind of like playing in a studio. It's just good for you to do that. Let's see, next question. Joost Domen. So Joost is a student in the Netherlands and wrote to me and about a guitar project that he had. It's very cool. And he wants to know, what's my dream rig? Jeff always says, Jeff's very funny. Jeff says, people ask him about his historic makeover Les Paul. And it's a $9,000 guitar. And people are like, wow, that's crazy. And Jeff's response to that is, this is what I do for a living. I had a whole studio of gear that I had collected when I was a college administrator, and I've sold it all off. And so I kind of collapsed things down into fewer guitars. And if you have fewer guitars, you can have fewer nice guitars. I have some amazing amps that I built with my buddy Dan Lurie at FYD Amps, who's just a master. And I'm incredibly blessed, to have had those friendships. So I've had, gear that's better than I could afford for a long time because I, got my hands dirty and I built some amps and stuff. And then, I bought this guitar. It's an expense on the channel, and probably on the other end of this, I'll sell it. Or maybe not. Who knows? I mean, it's funny. We could have a whole, maybe when we're coming up on the burst video, I'll do a whole live stream probably about bursts and Les Pauls and sort of the mythos of Les Pauls, because God knows you could do that for a whole probably season. But the reality is, for me, though I grew up listening to lots of rock music, I spent years listening to jazz and fusion, and I have to tell you that Les Pauls, for me, this is a fascination with Robin Ford's playing. And it's interesting because I hear from Jeff and Holger that Robin has these interesting issues with Les Pauls, some of which are that they're heavy and they don't have good neck access. Well, that's part of what makes them Les Pauls. But that's really what that's about back there for me. So let's see, we got questions. Visionland Music says, what's it sound like though? We just covered this in the whole scared of playing thing, Visionland. But you'll hear it. I'll play it in the long run. I'll put it on the video. It'll be me playing that on the video, which might just delay the video. Let's see. Yost is saying, Yost has got these questions coming. He's saying, Chris made a good video about money. He did. Chris Buck is amazing. Would you do any of that? Yeah, I'd be glad to talk about, I do it here. I talk about anything you want to know about that, about the money part. And actually, it's going to be in the course to the extent that it varies through the year and those kinds of things. So let me get some other questions here from Phil. Matt Bennett says he got one of the 25 Mjolnirs. Congratulations. We are going to do another batch of those, but it probably won't be till next summer. Let's see. Tim Baxter is asking the ultimate question. What do you think you can get away with gear-wise? Honestly, Tim, I kind of feel like at this point I have two of everything. I have sort of one of everything in the Strandberg line. I've got an Esquire, a Telly, a guitar that I set up, the red guitar back there. I think I had it out last time. That's got two humbuckers in it that sort of acts as a Les Paul for me. And that's one more guitar than probably even the major food groups, the Strat Telly Les Paul thing. And then I have an EJ Strat and a Telly that I put together from a Baja neck and a deluxe parts. And I have an ES390. So I think I have 7 or 8 electric guitars. And at least half of those really have to do with the channel, which is having a channel is a bit of a challenge for all those reasons, but it's also the ultimate rationalization. I'm glad Robert voted for Pickguard on. You're absolutely right, Robert. We are definitely the correct ones on this. Jason Heaton says, my channel before was cringeworthy covers and a few demos. Should I dump it and start new? Here's something you probably don't realize, that Rhett and Rick have both deleted probably 40 or 50 videos from the beginning of their channel. I would say that you should leave everything up, and maybe you could make it unlisted if you wanted to. Hold on to the views, but pay attention to what people watch. The first big video I had was how many guitars do you need? It was the third video I ever made. And I said on this on the Fluff interview that I did it as an exercise in editing. I wanted to learn more about editing for video, and I knew I was going to have to show just a ton of images, which has actually been a skill that I have to do now because short histories have between 400 and 500 images in each video. So that's a big deal. So I would say leave them there. You never know what's going to take off. And then you can always clean them up later. I think I've unlisted about 5 videos from the beginning of the channel. And it was once the channel got to be where the videos were getting about 10,000 views each. And I had a few videos that were sitting there at, 1,600 views. And I kind of cleaned them out. So that was it. Okay, let's see. Jack Stowe, do you plan on doing live in-person interviews? And if so, do you have plans to get that type of gear? Do I plan on doing live in-person interviews? I don't plan on doing any, obviously, live in-person interviews in the space. I might do live in-person interviews on the platform if the live streams continue to do well enough to make that worth the time. This is something that I've started doing on the off weeks of releasing a short history or a major videos, which is on a two-week schedule. So we're going to see how that goes. Obviously, there's people that I'd love to have talk about this stuff. And I'll be completely honest, I'd be very selfish and have people that are on the stream like Jens and people that have been doing this for a long time and are in different parts of YouTube, different parts of the music thing, or Jan Jankut. I mean, there's people that just have incredible skill sets that would be interesting to see how then they integrate the platform with them, with themselves. Or honestly, I'm just fascinated by different players and how they decide what to work on, what to play. So I would do that if it makes sense over time. Let's see. Michael Kraus, what was the hardest thing you had to learn? The lighting, videography, the script. Also, what was the most fun to learn? That's a great question, Michael. I laugh that my college professors and my high school teachers are all the ones that aren't still around playing golf in upstate New York. Well, not now, obviously, but are rolling in their grave, because basically to do a short history means I write a term paper every 2 weeks. I research it, I write the paper, it's 25 regular pages, then I put it into a teleprompter that's like 60 pages long, and then I record, I video it, film it, light it. I like the lighting. The new camera's been a huge step up. As I said, I did it backwards. I should have started making videos with my phone and made a whole bunch. One of the things I tell people, I actually do some YouTube consulting, so you can contact me, and sometimes I'll take on people who, if their channel is interesting to me. I'm working with a guy from Canada, and there was a jazz musician from Philadelphia, he's a great guy. If they had more videos up, I'd plug them here, because they have great attitude and they got great things to say. They're still just kind of finding their way. And I was encouraging them to just do with what they have. These lights, the lights that I have are like $250 worth of lights with little soft boxes from Amazon. The camera is a nice Lumix S5. My father was a college professor in art, and so I grew up doing photography and those kinds of things. So that was something I always liked. I will admit that the previous question, probably playing on camera, is something that is pretty scary for me, to be completely honest. The most fun, honestly, I really enjoy the community, and it's not just the lockdown. I loved it before that. I really enjoy the questions. I enjoy people asking. I think that was a big part of it. Robert asked, would I venture back to a DGT? Robert, I saw your video, and I used to have like 3 different DGTs and a custom 22 that had a DGT maple neck. And that was my main guitar. And as Robert said in his recent video, and everybody should go watch it because it's a great video, the point he makes is you can do, it's kind of on brand for me. He says, it's close enough to a Strat. It's close enough to a Les Paul. It's close enough to a Tele. And if you're working fast in a studio setting, to have the guitar in your lap, do those things. That's a great point. It's just a really great thing to say. The funny part was, when I was looking at those, I was also looking at, somebody had a 2008 DGT that was a nice weight, and it had the original hollow birds and all this, although I kind of prefer the dots. I was this close to doing that instead of this. And then my wife and Jeff and Perry all said, just get a Les Paul and shut up about it. So they're very supportive, all very supportive. Let's see. Delphin Killer says, do you still have a bass? I do still have a bass. And actually, in the end, I didn't put it in my, in the video on Danos. I should have, because I have a Dan Electro Longhorn bass as a reissue from the 90s. And that's very cool. That sounds very, very cool. And it's got flat wounds on it. I just am not a bass player. So I'm just as likely to play as a good buddy of mine, John Cordy, has an amazing channel, great jazz kind of stuff, but also all these wonderful Helix and modeler things. So John, I talked to John about this recently on a live stream. I think it was on the stream. And he basically records his bass parts in a mix with the octave down on a stomp. And I could never have told you that that's what those sounds were, because he gets a great sound with it. So I'm just as likely to do both of those things. Assuming Delphin Killer is a bass player, I still actually have a lot of basses on the list that I'm going to make. Somebody said hello from Elmira, New York. Hello, Elmira. My first job out of college was working at Elmira College. I worked there for the first 2 years out of school, so I have fond memories of Elmira. Let's see, I skipped ahead, I think. Oh yeah, I missed a bunch of questions. Kunar Kyoku, what do you think about sharing your YouTube content on other platforms such as Facebook and different forums and websites? I think that's fine if it works for you. I actually, this is an odd thing. I actually don't do any other platforms because I'm trying to focus on just this one. I think the only thing I probably will explore this year is turning the short history audio into podcasts, which people keep asking me about. So I think I'm probably going to end up doing that. But yeah, I'd say sharing those out is great. That's it. You know, you want to be all about figuring out ways to enjoy making the content, and then monetizing it is another whole part of the job. And actually, when I was talking about my schedule, I skipped over that. So if I try to release on a Thursday, then I give myself Friday off as a gift and play guitar. And of course, I inevitably end up thinking about other stuff. And then that next Monday is supposed to be administration. Well, the reality is this week I spent 3 days on administration. I was negotiating a new contract with TrueFire. Those guys are amazing, and it was great. They were totally open and wonderful. But you know, those things take time. I had to pull together statistics on the number of views that I've generated for them, for what they've paid me so far. You know, I have this experience that then I roll from before my previous life that I kind of roll up into what I do in YouTube. So that's what I do there. Ryan Full Dark Production says, really enjoyed your Beano video, Keith. Are you any other topics in the same style you're interested in doing? I have a list of albums that I would love to do. And I've been talking to Zach from Mythos about doing the third ZZ Top record, which is a really important record for me. And of course, you know, that's another Les Paul themed item. So that's something. Live at the Fillmore East, BB King live at the Regent. I mean, there's so many records that are so important, and they're also really great stories about how they got made. So I would do those. I love the classic album show when it was on VH1. You know, I'm dating myself, but I love that, and obviously I love great stories. So we're gonna probably come back and do some more of those. Joshua Taftis says, tone in the fingers. Yeah. Of course, it's in the fingers. But I'll put it this way. I was in a little guitar store in Brattleboro, Vermont once, and they had some beautiful guitars. It was Maple Leaf guitars. They're closed now. And they had a Santa Cruz. It was a J45, which is a slope shoulder Gibson flat top. It was a tobacco burst, beautiful thing. And I was playing the guitar, and I'd known the salesman for a long time because I used to go through there periodically. And he says, you know, Keith, I got to tell you that guitar sounds really good with you playing it because you don't hit the guitar very hard. And I could see that if somebody was playing this sweet little guitar, because it was kind of sweet, came in and like tried to flat pick the thing, you know, that it would get overpowered. And I tend to think that guitars kind of match players. When people say, oh, this guitar is terrible, or this guitar is just amazing, it's probably not going to be amazing on everybody's lap or on everybody's strap. I think that guitars really fit people, and what might work great for me doesn't really work for somebody else. So Mark Holt says, does Strandberg have a DC-59 style guitar? They don't really. They have the two style. They have a number of styles, but they have two body styles. They have the Bowden, which is a Strat style body-ish, you know, double cut, offset. And then they have the Salins, which are the ones behind me. Those are Tele, you know, modernized, futurized Teles, if you will, which is one of the reasons I absolutely love them. Yeah, they don't really have those. I don't actually have a sense from those. They're having trouble, like so many people, doing production still. Their production facility is Indonesia. Their main office in the U.S. is in California, and then of course Ola's in Sweden. Actually have a really active subscriber who lives right down the street from Strandberg's main offices there. So let's see what else we got. 8-Minute Axe says, camera you're shooting with. This is my main camera. This is a Lumix S5. I actually still have a pair that I need to sell, a pair of Canon T5Is, which were the cameras that I used for years. And I decided to buy those because Rick was using a T6i at the time. Of course, he went on to have much bigger channels, a much bigger channel, and that gear. Actually, the stuff I was writing today, I gave sort of 3 tiers of gear. There's the tier that my buddy Zach uses, which looks amazing. There's the stuff I'm using, and there's the stuff that Rick's using, and then of course there's the stuff that people like MKBHD on his tech channel, or well, who's bigger than MKBHD? Oh, Peter McKinnon, people like that. I mean, those guys are photographers and tech guys, and so that's something that they have. Let's see. I'm looking at questions here. So yeah, I talk about Zach and he appears. There it is. We're talking about invocations the other day. Oh, see, I mentioned Armando. Armando Miraglia is the guy that lives right down the street from in Uppsala, from Strandberg. So he's right there. I know he wants me to do a pig nose history. That's going to take a while, Armando. I don't know if there's enough of those out there still for people to do that. David Habernus is asking, does Epiphone still build the Les Paul Elitist? I think it was the Les Paul Elite. Although I like your name better. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Sorry. Let's see here. Thomas Moore. Hey, Tom. Thomas, did you buy the Strandbergs without ever trying one? Right now, it's hard to get a guitar at a store, that's for sure. I'd buy something if I played a model, but not sure. I actually ordered both of the first Strandbergs at the same time, thinking I would keep one, and kept both. They just really fit me really well, and one weighs 5 pounds, 10 ounces. The other one, the red one back there, weighs 5 pounds, 5 ounces. And I was really looking for a light guitar that would let me play longer each day. So I did buy those sight unseen. They don't have a lot of them in stock either, but you can get on a waiting list and be notified when they get guitars in from the company. And they have a 2-week, last time I knew, somebody checked me on this, they had a 2-week, they have a 2-week approval. I'm laughing because Robert Baker says he's actually looking on their site right now. I don't know whose site he's on, but let's see here. The thing keeps jumping. Visionland wants to know if I'm on a Mac or a PC. This is an iMac from 2017 with 64 gigs. I just upgraded the RAM to the maximum for that year, and it was good and important. Mike Jones. Okay, Mike. So questions about my appearance or my facial hair will sometimes get you bounced, but we're going to be kind here. Have you ever considered Polaroid glass frames? Honestly, no, I haven't ever thought of that. And I actually would be worried about how they would film. Perry's asking me about favorite photographers, favorite photography books when I was in school. It's interesting. I went to school at Rochester Institute of Technology. My dad was on the faculty of the art school, but not on the photo school. But he actually took photo classes for fun on the side, and I actually took a class where my father was also a student in the class when I was in college. It was a great experience, and I took a lot of photographs, and I've always done a lot of photography, but I never really looked at photographers. My father was a painter, and I grew up where I used to joke that picture books in my house were books about painting, and so that's really kind of where that was. So where are we here? Am I caught up? Okay, questions, folks. We got 15 minutes left. What else do you want to know? Oh, Phil wants to know, did I ever play a Dano 12-string? I used to own a Dano 12-string. I actually, in the early 2000s, in the big, inexpensive guitar, when I had 3 dozen guitars, I had a baritone and a 12-string and a 6-string and my Longhorn. I think I had 4 Danos at the time. And yeah, the Danos were cool. They still don't sound like Rickenbackers. I'm actually thinking of doing another Dan Electro video where, it's funny. So I got the Les Paul, and immediately people are asking me what pickups I'm going to put in it. It's a very expensive guitar, and it cracked me up that people immediately said, well, you're going to change out the pickups though, right? And I probably will in the end, but it just made me laugh. even the guy I got it from is just a dealer, Mark's Guitar Loft up in New Hampshire, that specializes in Gibsons and really custom shop Gibsons. He immediately said that he thought they were doing everything on the guitars as well as they ever had, except for the pickups. Even the wiring harness, they've really kind of got the tapers right and those kinds of things on the old ones. But he's still saying that people are still swapping out the pickups. So I thought that was funny, but it got me thinking as I did the Dano video that, Page actually had a few different Danos, of course, later. I mean, originally he had a 59 when they came out, and then he had one that was a 63, I think. If he only had the original 58, it would have had the different pickguard on it. But he's got that earliest swoopy pickguard. But there's people that build parts that are more like the ones they used then. And I think it would be an interesting video to do a mod project on a Dano, and then maybe give it away at the end or something. So I might reach out to the guys at Dan Electro about considering doing that. Sound Propeller Patrick says he has a 612 string Dano double neck. Yeah, well, I envy you, because those double neck guitars are too cool for a guy like me who grew up watching Genesis videos all the time. Deer Creek Audio wants to know, once your channel starts to grow, will it grow much quicker? That's interesting. Everybody, the thing that people tend to say is that the first 10,000 subscribers is the hardest. I actually would say the first 1,000 subscribers is the hardest, because you're typically making lots of videos and no one's watching them. And that's tough. That's tough to keep that going. So I would say that that's tough. I did find that what I find is that as the channel grows, it continues to grow more quickly. In other words, for a long time, I was getting, 5 new subscribers a day. Then it was 10, then it was 20, then it was 100, and now they tend to fluctuate around 150 to, if I put out a new video, I'll get 300-400 a day. I was visiting, the last time I got to spend time with Rick in the space down there, he was doing about 2,500 new subs a day. And now it's way more than that, depending on what videos have come out. Jonathan G says, hey Keith, if you could only have one guitar and one amp, what do you think they would be? Boy, that's tough. But I'm going to hear the guys at TDPRI, the Telecaster Forum, start cheering, because I read an interview in Guitarist magazines recently with Joe Bonamassa, and one of their classic questions is humbuckers or single coils for the rest of your life. What would you do? And Joe said, well, I can make a single coil bridge pickup sound more like a humbucker than I can the other way around. And I'd have to agree that I'm going to probably go Telecaster. I'd have to say a Tele style guitar. Probably not an Esquire, though. I love that Esquire Strandberg back there. It's a killer guitar, and it's really makes you work on your creativity to be playing a single pickup guitar. I loved it, actually. Robert Baker did a track. I see him pull his Esquire out more recently, and it's very cool to see him do that, because they're amazing and they get an amazing range of tones. But a straight up Tele. Zach Childs is still on the forum. He should look up, because the fact is I've got a 64 custom hand-wired deluxe here, and though it pains me to say it, the fact is most pedal builders build for somebody assuming a Fender. So you can put a pedal like this Rocket Melody, or I've got a Keeley Oxblood here, special limited white, of course, the white one, but or like a Mustortion or a Tube Screamer. All of those amps really were looking to go into the front of a blackface scoopy kind of Fender. And so it's pretty hard not to have a deluxe as your one amp. And the cool thing about this, even though it's more expensive to start, if it was really just the one thing, I actually know a guy who does jazz gigs up in Boston. One of the subscribers, David Whedon, great guy. David does all these gigs with a Princeton, and this is just a little more power than that. This one actually, because it's a solid wood cabinet, doesn't weigh much more than a Princeton. I think I put a Neo Creamback in it. It weighs 37 pounds. So I'd be pretty hard pressed to do better than that. Let's see. There's somebody here's got it. Let's see. Dick Dog wants to know if he's in the market for a Tweed Deluxe clone. Any recommendations? I don't know the market well enough, Dick. I can tell you that it'll have a lot to do with the quality of the iron. You want to make sure that you're getting a solid pine cabinet. Everything. There's a lot of things that really has a lot to do with like your speaker choice and stuff. It's gonna have a lot to do with what you want to do with it and your taste. So just kind of do that. It's kind of hard to find a bad one when it comes to that. Zach is answering for me. Of course, Telecaster. Zach, exactly. Actually, a lot of folks are. Mike Binkowski wants to talk about the Snorlax some more. You're going to have to email me offline, Mike. We talked about this earlier. Not my favorite. Well, I guess it probably is my favorite, but I'm not a Pokemon guy. There's a whole story in a back amp. Telecaster Bear's right. Tele in a car amp is pretty hard to beat. There's actually a guy, Jake Stewart, who's a longtime subscriber, who is an Esquire and a car Rambler. And that's his whole rig. He's a session musician out in Houston, and that's what he uses. J-Trum John is asking, have I played an Eastman? I haven't. I don't have access. And actually, I used to have a habit, so I don't go to guitar stores that often. That's just not a good way to stay on brand, as the saying goes. Shao Kai asks, what's your opinion on the future of guitar music? What genre will dominate? Prog, Polyphania, Chicana, modern hip-hop influenced rock? Highly suspect Corgent. Yeah, I'm not that close to pop. And actually, the closest thing I'm hearing guitar in our house is singer-songwriter. Singer-songwriter seems to be stronger than ever. Josh Ritter, William Prince. My wife could do this better. She'd probably hear me fumbling up here from downstairs. The fact is, you're hearing guitar on all of that stuff, and killer guitar parts. Perry actually has a real interest in what I would think of as Americana or even crossover to folk, and amazing guitar players on those records. And I think that that's a thing. So I think that's probably where it's going to go. Fred Anderson's is saying, would I consider doing one on Martin, the D18 through the D45? Honestly, I have them on the list. I'd say the D18, the D28, and the D45. And one of my favorites, the D42 or 41, just because they're a little plainer than a 45. They're all on my list. And the reason you'd have to do different ones is that there's so many artists that were so huge on each of those models. Although I think I told it last time that my favorite thing about that is that Neil Young likes to say that he wrote most of the songs, even though he owns Hank Williams' D28. He's written most of his songs on the Yamaha that lives on the floor of his kitchen, his bedroom. Galactic Scripter says what I think of modeling amps and the new digital effects and music in general. I think that it's going to be the future. I think this stuff is coming. I don't think it'll eclipse tubes until tubes aren't available. And I've got a lot of tubes in my basement. So it won't do that here, even though I actually had a really good meeting with the guys from Yamaha where we just brainstormed sort of the future of amps, and it was fascinating. And what those guys are thinking about is really interesting, and I just think it's really interesting. And I've got a Stomp. That's my basic little pedal board here is an ML Rocket, a Smart Switch, a Stomp, and a third and a second drive stage, different ones, RC Booster, those kinds of things. Galactic Scripter says, what do you think? Oh, I just answered that one. Favorite jazz piece to play? My family could answer that very well. They're plenty sick of listening to me play The Nearness of You or So What, all these tunes that kind of just haunt my sleep. So this thing skipped ahead on me. Let's see here. Oh, Jan Yakut. I hope I'm not butchering your name too bad, Jan. Says, let's say one of a rather manageable YouTube channel, and then while some videos get picked up at 10 to 20,000 views in a couple of hours, what's up with these? Asking for a friend. I couldn't explain that except to say that, like I said, the algorithm gets behind things that are successful. And you never know where something's going to get shared. I have videos that were out a year ago. I'm sure Robert and Jens and all these guys I can say the same thing. All of a sudden you'll see a video that hasn't had a lot of views, and then it'll get my Les Paul video periodically will get like 5,000 views in 2 days, and it's nothing I did. I'm not talking about it on a stream or anything, and all of a sudden it'll just explode. So let's see. Yeah, Robert's talking. Yeah, absolutely right. That Esquire is killer. Bobo Bohan says 5 to 10 watt amp recommendations. The channel's 5 watt world because I used to build a lot of champs, and I frankly think that it's absolutely all you need at home. But the reality is that I think a 10 to 12 watt amp is probably the most flexible. You can easily do a jam, I mean, without a really loud drummer. You can mic it on a gig if you can. And then frankly, this deluxe that I've got here, or a regular reissue deluxe, it's got a Torpedo Captor X sitting on top of it. I could dial that amp to do any gig that I need. So I think either one of those do that. Oh, Nick Larson says he just got a Supersonic 22. Yeah, I totally agree. I have a real good friend from Vermont, Kevin Boyer, who gigs one of those in a cover band and in a function band, and they're killer. Jason Heaton is saying, thoughts on the new cheap Far East pedals and guitars. I'm not close to the pedal market, Jason. Thanks for your question. Thanks for your top chat. But the reality is I'm not close to those. I will say that like Eastman and others kind of illustrates for us that there's been a music instrument business industry in China for so long. And it's fascinating to me how long that and how good everything is getting. Deer Creek Audio wants to know, what percentage of viewers are subs to your channel? Mine are only 5%, still small at 3,500 subs. I have about, I can look it up, but I think from memory, it's now, for a long time, it was only 20%. And that's kind of a really low number, and it was kind of a drag. And at the same time, Rick always was saying to me, well, that just means that you have all this room to grow. So let's see, subs. I think I'm at about, I think I'm at about 69%, so 70%. But as I said, I've got 134,000 and change this afternoon, and the reality is I get about 450,000 views a month. So unless you're all watching everything lots of times, which is possible because it takes a long time to get through one of these videos, I think that's it. Let's see. I'm out of time here, so let me just do a quick look for questions here. I'm trying to make sure I've gotten through everything. Update us on your D20. I assume that you'd have. Oh, it would have been my 1 amp. It's pretty funny. So the guys at Rev are amazing, and that amp is incredible. My one grumble with it, because I'd like to be able to just grab something and go play like a jazz thing. There's no reverb in it unless you're doing a direct out to a PA, and then you can dial it in within the speaker emulation. So if that amp had, the thing's 9 pounds, 20 watts, if it had reverb, even digital, the digital reverb in the little Vox amp that I have, the AC10, it's incredible. If that had it, it would have been my 1 amp. And actually, I've told a lot of people that that's the one that I would tell people to buy, and a lot of guys on the channel, friends of the 5 watt, have bought those and love them. The only thing that would keep me from doing it, the reason I laughed immediately was the day I got the Les Paul, I couldn't really dial this deluxe to sound great with it. And I kind of discussed it. I took it downstairs and I'm thinking, maybe I got to send the guitar back. And I plugged into the D20 with my 112 Mojo Tone, all pine cabinet with a greenback in it. And that was it. It's incredible. It was an incredible thing. So, everything is different. Let's see. Nobody asked me, but I just actually talked to Fender the other day. They're talking about their new Vibro Champ. And obviously, this would be a logical place to look at those. Zach's very kind. He's saying that I've done a lot of mentoring. I've actually learned a ton from Zach. All right. Well, I think we're out of time here. Rob says, if I hold the Les Paul, use a wide strap. That only weighs 7 pounds and 14 ounces, Rob. That was the whole idea. But honestly, I don't have a life right now where I need to strap on a Les Paul and start doing the windmills. I'm going to be okay. Thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the top chats. And I really appreciate all the questions. It was really good. I was kind of worried that the topic might feel a little off brand, and that people wouldn't want to come and ask questions about it. And I'm honored that my senior, that probably makes these guys sound older than me, and I'm way older than all of them, all the guys who have been on the channel, and I appreciate it, the folks in the community. Thanks a lot, Robert and Jens and everybody else, and Zach. All right, thanks. I'll talk to everybody in the future. Thanks again.